Hey everybody, what's going on? Dace here, and today we're going to be checking out my clear from quite a while ago of Vasara, the first one. And this is on what they call hardest mode. I think it goes... There might be a very easy, I'm not sure, but there's easy, normal, hard, and hardest. You pretty much play the exact same way, it's just that certain boss attacks and things like that will have additional layers of... fire when they're shooting and all that kind of stuff. So anyway, I'm just going to be sharing a few things. As I've mentioned in one of my other videos, I did do a very, very in-depth examination of this game some months back. It's like a half-hour look at like all the details, all the mechanics, everything you can imagine. So I'm not going to be like sharing all that kind of stuff, because if you want to check that out, that's available. I'm more or less just going to be reminiscing a little bit and seeing what comes to mind for this in particular, and just explaining maybe like a summary sort of thing. So unlike number 2, where you have, I think, 4 mini bosses on your way to the stage end boss for each stage, this one you only have like a halfway boss and then the stage end boss. So the guy that we just spoke to and destroyed, that was the halfway boss. And if there's one thing I love, it's just the enemy variety, like these copters just cruising around, and then these like hover bike things or whatever they're supposed to be, and just these like these 4-legged tank turret things or whatever, like. And the backgrounds, like, I can never get enough of these backgrounds, especially the forest where this fight coming up takes place. I just love the lush green colors. There's a lot to take in with this game. And this boss is super cool. I love that it splits into 2 separate units. Like, they're still connected, obviously, but they are too. And just like the thrusters at the back of the ship, oh, the colors and animation of it, everything in this game is just so sweet. So for those who either want a bit of a refresher or have never played or heard of Vasara before, or just you've maybe heard of it but you didn't really know too much about it, in comparison to number 2, the way it works in this one is we have a single gauge at the top, which we fill by collecting the red gems. And when that is full, well, one thing I will say first is that if you are familiar with the Vasara collection, I think the way they have it set up is that the default setting is that you get to choose when you unleash your big Vasara attack, when your meter is full. But the actual way it works, like originally, is it automatically goes off, from what I've learned anyway. And I think that is the best way to play personally, because when you don't have the option of just saving it for when you want it, there's this whole extra layer of strategy involved, because there may be parts where you're coming up to either a section in the level, or let's say a part of the boss fight, where you're like, okay, I know I need that big attack. That means you got to be paying attention and not over collecting as you make your way there. So there's just this extra thing you need to be balancing every step of the way. And I love how they did that. So one thing that I have noticed when talking to people about these 2 games, Vasara 1 and 2, is that they're very difficult. And as I've mentioned before, you need to have the approach down. If you're treating this like a shmup where you just predominantly are shooting, you're not really going to get too far in these games. The thing you want to be doing is treating the melee as your absolute main weapon. And so if you've been struggling with this game and you haven't been doing that yet, give that a shot, because you'll probably have a much better time. One thing you could maybe experiment with, just to really have an obvious gauge for how often you need to be using the melee is just start with stage 1 and only use your melee attack. So the moment you charge it up, let it go, be charging it again, get it ready right away. Just act as if you don't have your gun. And the reason I say that is because with that sort of exercise, what you'll be able to do is, oh, I love this boss. Yeah, it's just so cool. Anyway, back on track. What that allows is for you to kind of just get a sense of how often you really need it. So here's the thing, like when I was playing this and I realized, okay, you need to be aggressive with that, I went in and I was just constantly using it. And what I soon learned is that, okay, there are just times where I know for sure I'm going to be needing that charge ready to go, because you can't be firing your gun when you're holding your charge. If I'm not mistaken, like I said in a previous video, it has been a long time since I've played these. So I think you tap to shoot your gun and then you hold it to charge your sword or whatever character you're using. But anyway, long story short, the more you practice this, the more you'll see, like, okay, I know specifically for this part of the level, I need to have the sword going off every few seconds, and there's no reason to be shooting anything. There may be other parts of the stage where you're like, oh, okay, I've played it enough that I know I can actually be firing here, or I can squeeze in a few shots there just to clean up a few popcorn enemies and then start charging again. So long story short, just use the charge attack, the melee attack, as much as possible, and don't even think about the gun until you're familiar enough with things to know, like, okay, now I can just fire away. That's just one exercise anyway. I'm not saying you have to play that way or the game has to be played that way, but that might help you start understanding the way to balance and juggle these things, if you've been struggling and treating it like a game where you just are supposed to be shooting everything down, because that, yeah, is not necessarily the case here. Oh, man. But you will see that I am firing quite a bit, but that's just because sometimes, even though, like, it's faster using, like, you can pretty much take enemies out, like, in a single unleashing of the melee. I just personally find it very satisfying to take a little extra time to use the guns to take certain enemies down, just because I love the sound effects, I love the colors, and so, yeah, just sometimes switching back and forth was just a very satisfying feeling. And I talk about that specifically in my examination video, just how the sound of your firepower just raining upon the enemy is just like, it is actually like rain almost, just like beating down on these hard metal surfaces. It's just, oh, it's so good. Oh man, these bosses are super creative. I just really love the way they move, the way you've got to read their patterns because of their fast movements. Even though it's nothing super complex, like, it just keeps you busy. Like, you have to be paying such close attention. Oh, so cool. And the reason, like, I do have my normal, hard, and hardest clears. The reason I chose to use this one for the video, I watched it the other night, and it was, I think, a no miss until the final boss and the TLB. That's when I started taking my first hits of the run. So I think this, in terms of, even though I'm not giving you like a, oh, here's how to clear the game, here's like guide commentary for like step-by-step what to do, even though I'm not doing that, this can kind of, you can take what you see here, and if you have any questions, let me know, but I just figured it was like a pretty solid run for that kind of purpose. So whatever it is you can extract from watching this if you want. And the thing is, like I said before, whether you're playing on one difficulty mode or another, it's pretty much very, very similar. So you don't need to be like, oh, well, you were playing on the hardest mode. Like, that's going to be very different than like what I'm tackling, but that's not the case. Oh, man, I just love the pacing in these games. Like, it never lets up, and it's so good. And when you put the time into learning the boss strategies, like how to deal with them and all that kind of stuff, like, it's just a blast. One thing I know for sure is that I could, if I was to go back to this with the intention of no missing, I could bang that out very quickly, I feel. And I think I made that awareness, or I came to that realization when I watched this the other night, because I couldn't actually remember whether I took hits in this run or not until I watched it, and then I was like, oh wow, if I made it all the way to the final boss without taking a hit, then it would just mean I need to be a little smarter with the bombs I use leading up until that point, and then you can literally just cruise through the final thing. But if you are interested, for those unaware, I did do a no Vasara attack, no bomb, and no miss run of the final boss and TLB in and around the same time I was originally playing this game. So I have that video up as well. And that took a lot of practice because like you just don't have, like, because you're putting that self-imposed limitation in place, you have to play smarter. You have to put a lot more time into figuring out where you can position yourself, because all you have to use in that situation is your gun and your sword to deflect things. So there's no saving grace in that sense, but it makes for such a wicked experience, just an absolute rush. And I did the same thing for Vasara 2. And interestingly enough, in the, like, so I have a Vasara 2, no Vasara attack, no bomb, no miss for the final boss video, and then I also have that, which was a completely separate instance in the clear that I just shared the other day from months ago, that I did commentary for. That just happened to be a time where I pulled off the same thing. Actually, no, in that one, I think I used my Vasara attack, but there was a separate video where I didn't use any of that kind of stuff. And that was like wild. Oh man, figuring that fight out was just insane. But anyway, back to this game. I just love all the gold collectibles that you can get, and just the way they shimmer on, like, I think it's like one, like every second or something like that. Oh man. And slashing open the lamp posts or whatever they're supposed to be, and other objects to reveal more and more gems, just like these big explosions of gems. Oh, but yeah, these are games that I just got so into. And here's the thing, like, I don't typically go for no missing or like other types of things like that I've mentioned just in like the last minute or two. But when I'm so into a game, when I'm so in love with the way a game works and everything else, I just love challenging myself in that way. I love going above and beyond just a simple clear, because it's just so much fun exploring that kind of path and seeing what you can do and seeing how you're going to need to do it if you're setting that goal for yourself. This is easily one of my favorite bosses, if not my favorite boss, just because of the purple color is just so deep and rich. And then we come to this part, and it's just this gorgeous. This was the gorgeous purple I was talking about. Oh man, oh man. Like, just this wicked mech. I sometimes daydream about if they were to do a modern Vasara, or even like if Visco was to come back into existence and do like Vasara 3 or something, and just it would hold true to the way the mechanics work in numbers 1 and 2, but it would be modern, and so it would be like way more intense, and there might be other things involved, who knows, but I could see that being so wicked. When I first came, like when I was completely beginner with this game, this boss was crazy. Like that last pattern where it's just circles of massive bullets firing out and then the other things shooting. It was just like, oh my god, how am I gonna deal with this? Like how? But you just put yourself in the situation, and before you know it, you're noticing, oh, I can do this, I can do that. It's honestly always just a matter of putting the time in. And here we are for the last stage. Now, one thing I will say is I'm playing, anytime you've seen me, other than like a first look or whatever video that I did originally, Vasara 1 and 2 videos are me playing on Mame or MAME, however you want to say it. I do have the Vasara collection for Switch, but I noticed there's some really wonky movement and lag, and to be completely honest with you, it's pretty brutal in my opinion. I won't speak for like the PS4 version because I'm not sure how that plays, but the Switch version, like when I first got serious about tackling this game with that like renewed sense of like, okay, I'm gonna go in there, I'm gonna experiment with a melee heavy approach and see like how that compares to like just how I originally was playing, where I was just attempting to shoot everything. I was maybe getting to like stage 3, and then my runs would constantly just crash and burn, and I couldn't figure out why. I was like, I know I'm not terrible at this, so why am I messing up? And then when I went from the Switch version to Mame or MAME, it was like a complete 180 difference. Suddenly I was playing like so well, and I honestly believe like the main thing was just the controls and the movement, and there was no delay whatsoever, and I think that was all the difference in the world for me at that point. Because things I was messing up, I was like, oh wow, I actually feel like I'm in control of my character now. And I'm telling you, it was just an incredible realization to make. So you notice how I just got bounced by that side unit? That's intentional. And what I love about, you know how I'm always going on about just knowing a game intimately, like really getting to the nitty gritty of like everything you can possibly figure out and extract. That's one of those little details that I picked up on based on where I realize it's like already half a minute gone at this point, but that's one of those situations where you're just playing tons and then you notice something you can use to your advantage. So I always let that thing bounce me to the side because it gets me out of the way of the other shot that's firing at me. And I just love when you can start building little bits and pieces of information like that into your strategy and use it to your advantage. It's just so cool. And we're heading to the TLB. You excite my samurai blood. I will accept your challenge. Come. This will be your grave. Now! I love these fights. The Vasara 1 and 2 boss fights, like the final boss fights, I mean, are easily some of my all-time favorites from any shmup I've ever played. Like, they're just like such a wicked climax. Like, it's just over the top. And then these things turn, they flip, and then they have a new set of attacks, and they just look so wicked. Like, I absolutely love these games. Like, it's ridiculous how good they are. And just, oh, man, just how many phases these fights have. Like, I love it. Oh, I'm taking a lot of sloppy hits here. Oh, these patterns look so good to me. Oh my god. And then this huge monstrosity. Just bonkers stuff. There we go. And then, of course, a little bit of story. You have, in case you weren't aware, there are 3 playable characters in this game, and depending on which one you use, you will actually have a small segment of like personalized story at the end. Like, you'll see the same scene here, but I'll point it out when it shows up, since I'm playing as Yukimura Sanada. So everyone will see this part, just like panning to the side or whatever. And then this is where, like, whatever character you're using, you would have your own little scene. And that is that. So yeah, I definitely didn't cover nearly as much as I could have, but I'm trusting it was an enjoyable commentary to listen to. And if it inspires you to, yeah, look into this, it's not that you like can't jump into the Switch or PS4 version and still have a great time, even though there is like, yeah, the delay and wonky movement issues that I feel are there anyway. Because you can certainly jump in, fiddle around, get a feel for it, and have fun. I don't think the game, I think it's like $10 or something. Sometimes it goes on sale for $2. Like, it's just ridiculous. So if anything, like, feel free to wait for a sale or just grab it whenever. But yeah, anyway, we'll leave off there for now. Thank you so much for checking this out with me. And yeah, someday I do really want to get back to playing these games again, but yeah, playing on the computer isn't really my thing, so I'm not really in a rush for that. But anyway, have a stellar one. Thanks again, and we will see you next time.